Hey Redemption, Tyler Johnson here, lead pastor of Redemption, Arizona. I wanted to address you today on how we're thinking through regathering. First things first is to tell you this really isn't a reopening because the church has never been closed. We have never done as much ministry as we are doing now, or certainly we've never done more than we are doing right now. People are being ministered to, the Word of God is going forth, people are having Christ shared with them, the sick are being prayed for, we're in strong communication with vulnerable families and vulnerable populations. We're seeking to serve the poor. The truth is, I could go on and on and on, but the church has not been closed. So we aren't feeling the same type of burden about reopening that many businesses and or restaurants are, or you could name it. And yet I really do sense that there's many people who think that the church has been closed. The truth is we have not been closed. Now, we haven't been gathering together, and I know that's the question that so many of us have right now, and it's why I want to address you this morning. Here's the path that we're following. The White House came out with these guidelines for the reopening of America. In those guidelines, governors all over the country, and Governor Ducey here in Arizona is following those guidelines based upon the data that they see from public health officials. So the state equivalent of the Center for Disease Control, the CDC, is the Arizona Department of Health, and they are following the data points to show when it would be safe and most prudent to reopen the state of Arizona. Now, the reality for worship services or faith-based communities is that the governor has deemed faith-based communities essential services. They're not going to get involved in when we open or even in how we open. And yet they are clearly giving us recommendations about how to be safe. And they're also saying it really would, for public health level, be great if you followed the same guidelines that we are calling the whole state of Arizona to follow. And we have chosen to follow those for numerous reasons. We know that there's experience and expertise above us that we believe and at many levels trust. We don't know if they're right in everything, but at the end of the day, we think it's more viable and more effective than just the recent article we read or the recent opinion we were influenced by. So we've chosen to take the guidelines and follow those in the three phases: phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. In simple reality, phase 1, as things begin to open up a little, which is the phase we are currently in, as announced last week by Governor Ducey, is don't gather in above 10 people. So we're encouraging people under 10, hey, go for it. Gather together, pray for each other, encourage each other, spur one another on to greater love and good deeds, as the book of Hebrews says. Phase 2 looks like, right now, if everything goes as we all hope it would be, and the data points show that there isn't a spike in COVID cases, that May 26th, we would move into phase 2, which means people at 50 and under, the number is 50 and under, could gather together. This would be a point where most of our redemption communities could begin to gather, or other gatherings, whether they be stage of life gatherings or otherwise, could be creative in how they gather in groups of 50 and under. And we will encourage that. Phase 3 right now looks like, if everything went as planned, according to the data points, and everything goes the way we want it to be, would be that we would have the potential of regathering on June 14th. Now, there's all kinds of questions that go into this for us on whether or not we would do it and what it would look like, but we would have the potential to gather in groups above 50 at that point. I know people all over are craving, give us a date, give us a date, give us a date. But as we follow the governor's office and the Arizona Department of Health, the reality of this is, we can't really give a date because the dates are dependent upon the data points, how many people actually are getting sick and how is the virus being spread. So right now, the dates I gave you of May 26th and June 14th are entirely tentative dates. I also think most of you would understand the complexity that it will take us to regather together. The realities of children's ministry, public confidence, the confidence of many of you who would be volunteers, the realities of us applying social distancing and cleaning realities. It's very complex, and we really appreciate you all understanding. We want you to know this. We are working very hard. I do not think there's another organization or another church that's working any harder than us. I'm certainly not saying we're working harder than anybody else, but we are working to have our ear to the ground for the expertise in the medical community, the expertise about economic reopening, the realities of how much you all want to regather or are nervous to regather. Some of you are going to get surveys in the next couple weeks about your willingness and confidence in regathering, but it's very complicated. So we appreciate you understanding those realities, but we want you to know we are working very hard on behalf of our whole church and on behalf of the state of Arizona and the cities and communities that we're in. Jesus calls us to be a good neighbor. He calls us to witness to these realities. So we're trying to listen to public officials that have a deep burden to do what's in the best interest of the total whole of the population. And I understand that there are some of you watching, and there are people even on our staffs that don't all agree with each other and don't all agree with assessments that are being made. But we are all in this together. That's the reality. And we certainly are in this together as Redemption Church. And so we thank you for praying for us as we continue to pray for you. We want to continue to provide you clarity. So make sure you're looking at all of our social media feeds, the blogs at your congregation, the emails that may go out. There'll be some videos. And from this point forward, we're going to be trying to communicate with you on a weekly basis so you understand the way in which we're thinking. We love you, Redemption Church, and we thank you for your concern and your understanding.